welcome to the Nordic Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand of the company Horns of Odin. As always, before we jump into the show, I do have to plug our Patreon. It's how we keep the podcast going. It's literally the lifeline of the podcast. It pays for a ton of things behind the scenes. It helps us get new equipment. I can't stress enough, it is how we make the podcast, and the podcast couldn't survive without it. So if you can pop over to Patreon/Nordic Mythology Podcast and check that out, we would appreciate it. What you get is a bonus episode every single week, and that is in the form of a Q&A with our guests, where we sit down and we let the patrons ask their own questions. And a lot of the time, there are questions that I've missed. It's basically an extension of the main show, and there's a ton of information in there. So if you like an episode, go onto the Patreon, you're going to get that little bumper, that little extension, and it's worth every penny. And you get the whole back catalogue as well. And if you can't support through Patreon, just a like, share, 5-star rating, wherever you get your podcast is going to help new people find the show, and maybe they can support. But with that said, let's get into today's show. I'm really looking forward to this. I know you two are a little bit nervous, but my lovely guests are Gloria Notarangelo and Richard Wakeman, returning for his third time this time, right?
Yep. Hello.
Hello. Because I remember last time we spoke, I thought it was your third time.
Yes. I think it was a long time in between shows.
It was, yeah. So this time it is. And so this is one of our creator episodes where basically we speak to somebody who creates something cool. And Gloria, you create really beautiful artwork on people.
On people, well, yeah, I try my best, my favorite medium is people skins. But first of all, well, thank you so much for inviting us to have a chat with you. It's an honor for us to join you on the podcast. And I am a tattoo artist, and I specialize in mainly Nordic and Celtic tattoos, but I basically take inspiration from loads of different artwork from Europe, Scandinavia, British Isles, from a few different time periods.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. I guess for anybody wondering, the pair of you are here together because you are also a beautiful couple as well. Just in case anybody wondered why, I wonder why Richard's just popped up on the back of this episode.
Yeah, I don't actually know why I'm here. No, it's because we're a couple, but we've also just opened up Whole World Remains in Central London as well.
Yeah.
But yes, I am deeply involved in the studio as well, and in ways that I didn't actually think I would be when I'm actually meant to be working in the museum full time. But maybe that will come up later in conversation as well. But I don't want to hijack this podcast from the actual artist.
Well, we opened the studio together, so yeah, we're in it together.
True. And yes, so many ways, because we got officially engaged in front of some Nordic banners that we made a month ago.
Yeah, pretty much a month ago, yeah.
Congratulations. Were they the banners for the Mythos show?
Yeah.
They are stunning.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. We loved working on those. It was such a nice and fun project, and yeah, it was so fun also to collaborate on them between me and Richard, because we did them together. So
where we started collaborating on stuff about 2 years ago.
Yeah, about 2 years ago. Yeah,
and this is the biggest one we've done.
Yeah,
the banners were probably the second biggest thing we've done other than putting. I think the tattoo studio.
The tattoo studio is definitely the largest project we ever done.
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. Yeah, Richard, I know you're a huge wrestling fan, so that has to be quite cool working on the little Mythos project.
Yeah, I'm a dog.
Aren't we all? We all are. Perfect. Before we get into it, I had a lovely message yesterday from a gentleman. Now, it was a strange message, but I want to give him a shout out on the podcast because he sent me a really sweet message last night saying, I bet you probably won't be expecting to read this on a Saturday night, but on Wednesday, I was listening to your podcast whilst having a testicle removed. So it was one that obviously there was some complication. I guess it was possibility of being cancerous. Speaking to him a little bit after, and hopefully they've taken it out. And I was like, I don't know what to think about this message. Like it's really sweet, and obviously it's lovely. It's lovely to get. But I'm like, what a strange message to get. I wasn't expecting to think that somebody would be hearing my voice whilst getting operated on, and particularly not having something like that removed. But the guy's name was Steve, and I want to give him a little shout out and say I wish him all the best with his recovery, and hopefully everything's fine and it's all kind of okay.
That's very, very sweet.
Yeah.
Like in one way, I wasn't expecting that, but at the same time, if the podcast is something that actually gets him through a difficult time, that's absolutely lovely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things. When I started doing my Instagram stuff, it was just as a personal kind of photo album, and then it was only during lockdown when I was getting people responding to pictures I posted. I just posted like a picture of the Lewis Chessman, and then people went kind of crazy for it because the museum had been closed for a couple of months and no one had seen it. And I never realized that it was actually helping people kind of like get to grips with being isolated. So you never know, even though I thought it was just me as a personal photo album, and you never know, even your podcast, what kind of hole it fills or what kind of things it kind of brings to people. That makes sense. So yeah, that's really, really sweet.
Yeah,
I should use the word filling a hole in a different term, considering what he was having removed. But
yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, you almost must get that, Gloria. You must have people bring all sorts, because tattoos are so sentimental and personal and close.
Oh yeah,
I imagine you get tons of really lovely requests, and even, I guess it's off topic, but how is that when it comes to taking that responsibility for putting something on somebody that has such a deep meaning and it's going to be there forever?
So, right, that's a question that I kind of think about very often, because I don't think I will ever get used to people traveling, even from the town next door, or people that instead choose to travel from across the planet to come and see me, because they trust me so much to have something I do on their skin permanently. And I was actually talking about this quite recently with a person that popped in the studio to say hi. And the answer is, I don't want to get used to that, because I feel like the moment that tattoo artist gets used to the feeling of clients trusting them, that is when you actually end up taking them for granted, which you shouldn't. It's such an important thing for each person, no matter the reason or the meaning that the tattoo has. Something might be, sometimes it can be like a very personal meaning. It might be dedicated to like an important part of their life, a very significant event, or sometimes to somebody they loved very much. Or sometimes it's simply just that they like the artwork and there is no deep meaning behind it, on a sentimental level. They just really love that kind of artwork and they want it on their skin. But you always have to appreciate it, no matter what's the reason behind it. And I think it's just very, very important.
Is there anything you do to, I guess, can tattooing ever become boring? Or, because at the end of the day, it's a job. So I imagine, like any job, whether it's what somebody might consider the most boring job in the world or the most amazing job in the world, once it becomes like a job that you do every day, it always can become quite monotonous and the same thing. So how do you, keep that level in, because each one is so important?
For me, well, I've been doing this job for a few years now, and for me, it still doesn't really feel like working, which I think as a good sign, because I still love every single project I get to do. I guess the only thing I have to be a little bit careful about is that, especially when I have clients that come in asking for a Nordic mythology related tattoos. I might, like, obviously, this we all know pretty much most of the main stories from Nordic mythology, and one of the most popular ones, for example, is Ragnarok. I think most people that listen to the podcast have some degree read or heard about the story of Ragnarok. And being a very wonderful story, you will likely get a lot of people asking for a tattoo that represents the events of Ragnarok. So in one way, I say there is only so many times in a row that you can depict the same story and make it look different every single time. Mm-hmm. So my trick is kind of spacing them out in between other projects, so I have time for my brain to reset in a way.
Yeah, that kind of was coming into my head as you were speaking then, because for anybody that doesn't know how this style of tattoos work, I assume you do it as the same way as I've seen others, and I've seen you doing tattoos in up at Sacred Knot, and it's drawn on with Sharpies, and it's like a lighter. You start with a relatively light color, and then
I freehand on skin, and I don't redraw the design before the appointment. So obviously, I do discuss the idea for the project with the clients beforehand. But on the day of the appointment, I will use sterile marker pens on the skin. I use 3 different colors. I start with one very light color for like a very rough outline of the direction I want the design to go. Then I will use a slightly darker color to add more of the details, and then I will use either a black or a blue pen to make the final design, which is the one I will follow when I tattoo. So yeah, each project is meant to be absolutely unique for one single client, and is supposed to adapt perfectly to the shape of everyone's body. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
it's so fascinating, and I'm almost in awe as much of the drawing on as I am of the tattoo itself. And I think this is something that people need to appreciate, because sometimes I've got myself into a bunch of arguments on Facebook over when somebody will copy a tattoo. So I've had mine copied, and there's a certain group of people who just will defend it, and they'll say, well, don't put it on the internet if you don't want someone to copy it or whatever. And I think it's a lack of understanding how this style of tattoo works. And it's because each one is made to be individual. They're hand-drawn. It's not from a stencil. And yeah, there are probably some Nordic artists that do use stencils, but for the most part, the ones I've been with, they tend to be hand-drawn on to the body. Everyone is different. There's no plan beforehand. It's literally in the moment, kind of in almost a flow state. You just kind of go and go with what works and what comes and how it's flowing. So there's such a skill there. So when somebody takes that and steals it, you are kind of stealing from the person who's had it done, but it's the skill and the years of experience and the hours of drawing that you've taken to be able to just create this. And then when somebody just takes it, it's like, well, you haven't earned the time, the stripes to just kind of take that and use it. And that's why I get a little bit frustrated about it. And I think it's not very nice, to put it kindly.
It's definitely something that unfortunately I had happened to some of my designs more times than I would like. But it's a bit of a difficult matter, because in one way I really wish that no one would copy the designs, because they have no idea what I represented in that design. And sometimes there might be hidden meanings, like literally somebody's dude's family's name that they have no idea about, and they are literally walking around with somebody's wife's name tattooed on their skin, thinking that it was a bunch of runes or stuff like that. But there is also the problem that unfortunately tattoo mentality is just not quite used to this kind of style just yet. The majority of people are still used to, random walk-in tattoo studios where you just go in, you browse through the flash book and you pick a design and you say, I want this. And probably there is another 150 people that got that same tattoo done in the last couple of months alone. So, and also there is the issue, and I have people telling me this multiple times. People saying the moment you put it on the internet, it's up for grabs. People can take it, and you can do nothing about it because it's their right to take it. I completely disagree on that. You wouldn't personally just walk into an artisan's workshop, see something that you like, and walk out with it without paying just because you liked it. I find tattoos pretty much the same thing. We are artisans in a way.
Yeah, just because you can do something, quote unquote, like because it's not illegal, doesn't mean that you should do something. And there are morals behind these things, and it's of course, like if it's on the internet, you could take it, sure you could, but also just
the person from the British Museum has left the chat.
Yeah, that's a good point. But okay, in terms of tattoo artwork,
well, you just work there.
Yeah. You can't be held responsible. But yeah, it is such a it's a really frustrating topic because I think for the most part, the people who will defend it don't have these tattoos, because anybody who sees the process, and then more importantly also pays for it, because it's not a cheap process to do, because it's you're paying for someone's expertise, but also when you're drawing it on by hand, it's because there isn't a stencil. A stencil takes maybe half an hour. If you have to replace it, maybe an hour.
Yeah.
To draw it on by hand, you might be 2 hours just drawing the stencil on.
Yeah.
Like it's a completely different thing, and there has to be a whole other level of respect to it, I think.
There is also the issue that a lot of these people don't understand, and which is the final result. One thing is getting entrusting a tattoo artist that actually understands the style and is confident with it to do a certain design on you. Another thing is taking somebody else's artwork, taking it to a complete random tattooist and say, please reproduce this for me. That tattoo artist has probably never done that kind of style before. They're not confident with it because it's not something they specialize in. So 90% of the times they're basically guessing what they're doing, and the final results really shows that.
Yeah,
the majority of the copied tattoos are not worth the money that people pay for them, sadly.
Yeah, I think I've had both my hands copied, and one was like backwards, so it was on like the other way around.
Yeah,
and you can just tell, but it's it's frustrating. But let's get into your journey, and I'm going to give you a few compliments before we do.
Oh, no.
I knew you'd say that, but I've been lucky enough to remember, I think, to see probably most of your journey, because I remember when you first started over at Sacred Knot, and I see your work now, and your work it's incredible, but the speed at which you have got from starting tattooing to where you are now, and almost kind of just metaphorically kind of like blowing, I think, like just blowing the Nordic tattoo scene up, because you kind of just came in seemingly as like a new tattooist, and I think very quickly rose to the top. I don't think there's many people who do better Nordic style tattoos than you, whether it's the drawing or the quality of the actual art. And that kind of journey seems to have gone so, like I said, just so quick. From how long have you been tattooing?
About 5 years now.
Yeah. So I remember you did. I think I remember when I got my my back done, the mask on my back, I think you helped Sean do like half of it. You were both like doing a little bit together, and that was when you were training.
Yeah.
And then to go from that to where you are now, I think you should be incredibly proud of yourself. I can tell looking at Richard how proud he is.
There's so many things.
Yeah, and but to go from there to kind of not just open your own studio, but literally be at the pinnacle with any like person who does Nordic tattoo, they have to mention your name at like the top. And I know it's been a while since we've had a tattooist on here, but I know repeatedly in episodes your name has come up time and time again as somebody who's like just up and coming. Well, this is when the first start of the podcast, up and coming as somebody that's great. And now I'm sure that everybody else that's in the scene will always has to, respect the work you do. So I think you deserve that just for, like I said, for the speed at which you've become such a great artist. That said, I could tell that the compliments are probably getting harder.
Yeah, compliments do break me.
Yeah,
it's the one thing I will just never get used about. Just the fact that somebody actually likes what I do. Because I always see art and tattoos as very personal, very subjective. Obviously, you see artwork from one person and you say, oh yeah, that's fantastic. And then you see artwork from another person and you say, yeah, it's good, but it's not my cup of tea. So I find it very, very personal. So I don't think I'll ever get used about people referring to me as anything or like top of something.
It's the, like I said, I think it's the speed at which you've, in my opinion, like overtaken a lot of artists that have been doing it for decades, and the speed at which like you've just become up there. I think it's just, I think it's incredible. And I think not enough can be said about that, because tattooing is not easy to learn on its own, and this artwork isn't easy to learn on its own. So then to put them together, and then not only to put them together well, but to put them together exceptionally well, deserves its credit. So
thank you.
So where did the journey start? Because obviously, for anybody listening, your accent and the surname, I would assume you come from Italy. Am I right?
Correct. I'm Italian. Yeah.
Thank God for that. So how did you end up from Italy in the UK being a Nordic tattooist?
Right. So I've been in the UK for about 10 years, a bit longer than 10 years now. And I moved here pretty much after I finished school because I wanted to do something new. I wasn't interested in going to university and continue studying. So I just thought, okay, adventure. Let's go to another country and let's do something different. So moved to the UK. I always wanted to be a tattoo artist. I think if my family could speak any English, they would also tell you that I've been nagging them that I wanted to be a tattoo artist since I was 14. But life, growing up, things don't really go according to plan. So when I moved to the UK, I ended up doing completely different things, mainly working as a chef.
Oh wow!
Yeah, quite different, isn't it? And also very
I love cooking.
Italian.
Oh well, yeah, absolutely. I love cooking, and I like. Other than what I do now, I would love to cook for a living, but the hours.
No, that is the one job that I left, and I said never again. I love cooking. I love cooking for people, and I will happily do it in homes, but never again in the industry because it's just too much.
Yeah, the hours, and I think the level of respect that is not given, I think, is horrendous sometimes. But yeah, so how did you go from being a chef in the UK to then being a tattooist, realizing the dream?
Well, it's a bit of a weird story because basically I've always been drawing since I was little. Drawing has always been my my way of coping with anxiety, and I have a lot of anxiety. So here's the thing: the more stressed I am, the more my brain is struggling, the more I use it to draw. And at some point, if you're having a really bad time, you can end up getting quite good at drawing, if that's your way to cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
And
was you always, or were, what awful English that was, were you always interested in Viking Age style artwork, or did that come later?
Well, I was interested in artwork and mythology from lots of different cultures since I was a teenager, but that is also when I started to get more interested in like Nordic and Celtic mythology and artwork from the respective time periods. So that I think that is definitely when I started to have a preference for that kind of artwork. And yeah, basically, while I was here in the UK and I was working as a chef, I was having a quite a bad time mentally, so I started drawing more, and I started actually drawing loads of Nordic and Celtic artwork, and that's when I unconsciously decided to specialize in it. And basically, I kind of just wanted a storage place for my artwork, so I started sharing them on my personal account on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And very suddenly and very quickly, people started asking me to buy them so that they could get them tattooed.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, at least they asked you rather than just taking them.
Some did. I'm sure many more didn't.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, basically I just continue to share my artwork on my Instagram account, and then I was approached by the guys in Wales asking me if I was interested in moving there and starting to work in the studio. So at the time, I was quite fed up of working as a chef, didn't really have a plan B, so I was like, you know what, yeah, why not?
Oh, whereabouts were you a chef?
Sorry?
Where were you a chef?
Surrey.
Surrey?
Yeah.
It's a big trip to Wales.
Yeah, it's literally the other side of the country.
Yeah, all the way up in Llandudno as well, like right on the edge of there.
Yeah. I still remember telling people I was moving there, and their shocked face going like, "What? Why?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's I know we might touch on things. I know not everything worked out great in the end up there, but there has to be a part of you, I guess, that you got your chance there, you got to train there, you got to I guess realize the dream of going from a chef to a tattooist. So you kind of
Yes and no. It's a bit of a difficult topic, this, because yes, in one way it gave me the opportunity to start tattooing, but on the other hand, I was basically given a place to do it, but I learned by myself.
Okay.
So I was given the tools and roof to do that, but I had to do a lot of hard work into it and learn everything by myself, especially tattooing.
I think that then that gives you all the more credit for what I said earlier, for getting to where you are now, having to kind of go through that and learn it yourself.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like it would have made my life a lot easier if it didn't go that way.
Probably. Do you think you would be as good as you are now had it not? And I'm just, I guess because everything has a silver lining to it, doesn't it? Sometimes like hardship as it is in the time, on the other side, I kind of build.
I'm not sure, I'm not sure. I would like to think that maybe I would have gotten there a bit faster, but at the same time, I had to push myself to get where I am. So I'm not 100% sure about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always wonder things like that, because sometimes, you know, hardship does kind of, well, pressure creates diamonds, doesn't it? And that can be this type of situation where it's uncomfortable, and as much as you don't like in the moment, that kind of drive, it feeds that drive, doesn't it? That ambition to, I want my own place, I want to do this, I want to be better, I want to, and that kind of mentality goes. And that's obviously where you two met as well.
See? Yes.
So that obviously, you know, it has some great things from it, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely. It's one of those things that, you know, you cannot change the past, and probably you shouldn't, because even if some things would have been better, we probably wouldn't be where we are right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all roads kind of led to, all of the stuff that happened led to us coming back to London and starting up this place. Yeah. So
yeah, I guess
it's very cool.
Yeah, for anybody that's only listening to this episode, I would recommend going and listening to Richard's last episode on his own. You're shaking your head, but everybody loves your episodes. So Richard did an episode on him working with the Llandudno Museum and all the wonderful things that he did there. And that's it's a great listen. It's a great behind the scenes on museums and how they work, and how a lot of them need a little Richard sprinkling and a little touch to help them kind of just improve. So that's that's a lovely episode, and it kind of explains how you two ended up meeting, which is, you know, these things happen, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we did it. Yeah, didn't expect it to happen the way it did.
No, absolutely. We come from two very different backgrounds, and we just found our little thing in common, and yeah,
it was literally, I don't know, do you want to know the whole? Yeah, Gloria had a bad day. We followed each other on Instagram because of the museum stuff and because of the art. And I can't remember what had happened, but I just sent a picture that I was working with. Was it Lewis Chessman or something?
Yeah, I think it was one of the Lewis Chessmans,
Yeah, so I was working with one of the Lewis Chessman, and sort of she had a bad day, sent her a picture of it. It cheered her up, so I said, right, okay, well, I'll send you a picture of any object that I'm working on during the day, just kind of cheer her up. And that was like a year before we actually
met in person. Yeah.
Oh wow, I assumed that, Richard, you moved up to Wales and then you met up there.
We actually were very good friends for quite a while before we actually met in person, face to face, for the first time. Actually, the first time we met in person is when I came to London to see the Stone Age exhibition.
Oh wow!
Yeah. That was a good day.
Yeah.
Oh, you two are so sweet. I've got I've got the biggest smile on my face. I love things like this. It's so it's even better that it worked out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
it was cool.
Okay, so you were a chef. You ended up in Wales. You by hook or by crook, however, you trained in Wales. You became this artist. So how do we get from there to opening your own shop up in London? And however, you both took a deep breath there, so you can skirt by whatever bits you want.
Well, I think the deep breath is because if you ask the both of us this precise time last year, if we thought that now, 1 year later, we would have our own tattoo studio in London, we would have probably said, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And there's something about it being in London as well. I don't know why. I feel like opening anything in London just is more terrifying than anywhere else.
It's absolutely terrifying. Yeah. It's so terrifying. Absolutely. But, you know,
we've learned things that we didn't think we would ever have to learn.
Absolutely.
Tiling for me, I didn't think I could learn tiling.
We learned some DIY skills that, we have no idea about.
But that makes you appreciate it all the more when you have to do it yourself.
Yes, because we put so much sweat, tears, effort, money, anything we had and we didn't have in everything that we did in the past few months. because things in Wales escalated very quickly, very unexpectedly, and we were in a place where we had to choose what to do next. So the options were move somewhere and me working in somebody else's studio, and basically Richard was still in his sabbatical year from the British Museum, so he had to decide whether to go back or not.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the other option was Richard going back to the museum, us moving to London and figuring out if I was going to work in somebody else's studio or what was going to happen. So basically we decided to come to London because Richard does do a wonderful job, and it would have been a shame to. It is a wonderful job.
It's a wonderful job. Whether I do a wonderful job is a different story.
Yeah, no, you do. I'm sure you do. But yeah, basically we decided to come to London because it would have been a shame for Richard to give up on a 20 years plus career all of a sudden. And we started looking at the option of actually getting our own studio rather than continuing to pay for somebody else's studio, which I did for way too many years.
Mm-hmm.
And you really get things into perspective when you realize that having a whole tattoo studio in central London costs you less than what you've been paying for hiring a chair in a small little town.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the moment you actually put things in perspective, and you say, you know what, why should I continue to give money to somebody else? I can have that.
It is crazy, but I guess that's how that industry works in the same way. I mean, obviously, I don't want to go into the details of what you were paying, but it's a similar thing with hairdressing, isn't it? Where, like, I guess when you're working in a studio, the idea would be that the studio is bringing work in. I don't know how it works for you, but that's the idea, isn't it? That the studio brings the work in, and that then trickles down, and then
it's a bit of a
that's what you're paying.
When it comes to tattoo studios, because if the tattoo artist has their own separate clientele, then you're basically just paying for the chair and the tattoo supplies.
Yeah.
So it's always a bit of it depends, because every tattoo studio manages that in different ways. So you cannot really just talk about the whole tattoo industry in the same way. Every tattoo studio has a different way of managing that. Yeah,
I guess I'm curious. Do you have any? Has your opinion changed since opening up your own? Since you've opened up your studio, and I guess all the work you put into it, have you had any change on opinion of having your own place, or is it the same kind of before? Does that make sense?
It does. Do you want to?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
I think because I was seeing some of the things, and I've seen what happens at other shops as well. One of the ideas when we were thinking about whether we go somewhere else and Gloria works and I try and find another job in a different museum, or we try and make a run for it ourselves. We were kind of put off of working in another studio with other people straight away because of any kind of toxicity that kind of gets built up. And one of the reasons we were thinking about our own studio is to kind of do it how we thought it should be, learning from the things that we've seen and experienced at other places where there was no cap on the rates, and some artists were given about £3,500 per month for renting a chair, and we thought we wanted to try and do it differently, or how we thought it would be.
Kind of like our dream.
Yeah,
tattoo place.
Yeah. But also not our dream tattoo place, that it should be how it should be. Not just us, but for every artist, whether they're kind of grizzled veterans coming to guests, if they've got a place that people they want to get tattooed over here, or if they're kind of like young artists that want to have a start and that they shouldn't be exploited, that kind of thing. So it was the way we wanted to try and run the studio from the start, because you do hear a lot of people at the conventions we've been going to as well. We've had a lot of people come up to us and asking how they get into the tattoo industry and and it's and the first thing I was saying is it's like, be very, very careful. Because there were people that will just exploit.
I mean, unfortunately, as part of the industry, there's been horror stories from loads of people that have been working in this industry for years. I don't think I think I can count on the fingers of one hand people that actually ended up their apprenticeships and in good relations with the original studios. It's sadly what happens.
Yeah, I think that's not even just a tattoo thing. I think that's any industry that has an apprentice culture. Because I was an apprentice plumber before I did, Horns of Odin, and that's the similar thing. You get paid very little. You have to do all this shitty work. You work all the hours. Literally, and it is that kind of thing where you have to kind of earn your way. But the one thing I have to say from me doing that, it certainly taught me a work ethic that I probably wouldn't have had not doing that. So whilst in the moment I was like, fuck, I hate this, I should be getting paid better. Later on in life, then when I come to do Horns of Odin, I have a work ethic that is born from this kind of shitty environment. And that probably will stand you the same way you are now. Okay, so let's lighten the mood a little bit and talk about Old World Remains. Where does the name come from? Where does the inspiration? Obviously, looking at the lovely wall art behind you, it doesn't look super Nordic, I guess.
There is different styles of artwork in different parts of the studio. The idea of Old World Remains was generally to have something a bit inclusive, not just strictly based on Nordic or Celtic art, but artwork that inspires us in general.
The reason I'm laughing is I think we ended up spending an hour walking around Asda one afternoon trying to have a discussion of what kind of name could we get for a tattoo studio that involved museums, archaeology plus art. And I think, it was like an hour we were walking around Asda, and we went for a whole A to Z list of archaeological terms and featuring that could be used for tattoo studios. And then we took that list and we went home and somebody's already got that name, somebody's already got that name, somebody's already got that name. And one guy in Australia has 2 followers, but he's named his account that, so we can't have that one. And,
we wanted something unique, but we wanted it not to be just, superficial. We wanted the name to actually mean something. In this case, Old World Remains as in artwork, but also something that remains on the skin of the people that actually walk out of this place. Or as Richard suggested, some human remains as well, because he's very passionate about human remains and cemeteries and all that kind of stuff.
I did promise not to start talking about that.
It's fine.
It's fine. So the studio, is it anything archaeological inspired or historic? Because obviously, how does that work in terms of, we mentioned before, drawing directly on the skin. How do you turn your hand so quickly to something that obviously you specialize in, like the Nordic, Celtic styles, but if somebody brings you something else that's just, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but completely different, how do you quickly turn your hand and just be able to draw that on? Or would you use stencils, or would you just sit at home prior and learn it, which I imagine you probably could do really easily, just sit there and figure it out?
It is sickening the amount of talent this lady has for doing exactly what you just said. Even the paleo art you see and is off camera here. seeing her just sit down at home or when we painted the wall behind us, the stuff that just came out within after the 2 weeks of painting it, actually doing the actual designs on the wall. She won't say that she's that good, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it literally is a case of, and we had somebody when we were doing London Tattoo Convention the other week, who was just coming up and asking for paleo art. And yeah, that's something we would, everyone likes to come for the Nordic and the Celtic stuff, but if they want paleo stuff, and that's why we've got half of the studio is actually a cave to represent all the paleolithic art and stuff we've got.
Yeah,
and we'd love
also Neolithic artwork.
Neolithics and that stuff.
Yeah, we have different inspirations from different places and areas across Europe. But yeah, archaeology is a huge inspiration in my work. A lot of times I get clients asking me to include specific archaeological designs or finds in somewhere in the design, or to use the specific style of a certain archaeological piece of art for creating the actual design of the tattoo. So yeah, I do inspire a lot of my artwork from archaeological finds in general.
Do you? I'm trying to think, because it's such a broad subject. Do you think in future you will? First of all, has previous experience put you off having other artists there? And would it maybe be something you'd do in the future where you would get artists who would specialize in certain areas, or would there be enough of a market for certain areas? Because I imagine Nordic stuff is by far the biggest at the minute anyway, because it's so popular.
I think so. Nordic is definitely very, very popular, but there is a lot of people getting very interested in Celtic and more niche styles as well. You just have to find the right clients. And regarding the artists, yes, we do definitely have in our plans to make Old War Remains the most welcoming place for artists that want to guest here whenever they want.
Yeah, and that's art from all over.
Yeah,
whether it's not Mesoamerica, don't call it that anymore. So it went to museum terminology. Whether it's the Americas, Polynesian, Middle East, that kind of like old world artists, anyone who specializes in like old skills and old art.
Yeah,
that's what we kind of want to do. So that's why it wasn't just like using a Nordic name or a kind of like an Irish Celtic name. We want to be this old world to like what the old world represents.
Anyone that's passionate about traditional styles is more than welcome. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I love that, because that's kind of almost, again, it's not in any way replicating what you've known before and past. You going into a new thing and taking your own path. And I mean, I'm sure there are studios that do similar things. Maybe you guys know of any, but I don't know of any that literally just.
I'm not 100% sure. I think we opened the studio with the idea of it being archaeological inspired in general. We are two huge history and museum nerds.
Yeah.
So that was the main inspiration for us. So yeah, I think it would be fantastic if we continue the studio to go towards that. Yeah,
that's the plan.
That's the
plan. Do you think you will always stay around the Nordic and Celtic stuff, or would you?
I'm not sure. I mean, I do really love Nordic and Celtic stuff. I do specialize in that, and I think that's probably going to always be one of my main styles. But saying that, I have my little side projects, and I do love different artwork from different styles as well. A lot of people don't quite yet know that one of my favorite museum objects are actually Romano-British dragoness brooches. And sometimes people will not really think about me getting inspiration from something that has Roman influences. As I said, yeah, very big museum nerd. So I do have quite a large and different kind of inspiration from different artworks. I'm hugely into medieval marginalia, and I would love to tattoo them on people. So
yeah, our floor at home at the moment is 1 month ago it was covered with our massive amount of lino cuts, the prints that we've done for medieval marginalia of the cat by painting its own art, and we've got the medieval marginalia of the dogs riding bunny rabbits with shields on at the moment as well. So that's kind of taken over. But that's just a felt version, it's not tattooed yet.
For now, I do have plans for that. Don't worry.
Yeah, there's so much cool stuff out there. And that's why I love this idea of the studio and what it's going to be, because you can so easily get pigeonholed as like a Nordic tattooist.
Yeah.
And you could quite easily spend your entire life being an exceptional Nordic tattooist and make a very good living from it. But that's kind of, you just be kind of in that lane. That's what you'd...
I feel like that would kind of constrict me a little bit into one single topic while my brain keeps going to anything else.
But I think that it'll be great because there'll be so many people that will find you maybe through Nordic style, but then their whole world will be opened up to all this other amazing, fantastic art, like the medieval stuff that's just insane. And especially if you can get like on the Instagram where you can get all this different stuff going on, where the Nordic stuff can be like a feeder in, like a little filter in, and then from there you can show people all this other cool bits and pieces that would look great on the skin.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
definitely. Well, that's what the studio, if you kind of walk in, that's exactly what it is now. You walk in and you see the actual logo's got half of like a snatch and like Great Talk, so it's like not even Nordic, but then you see all kind of the
top part is Nordic.
Yeah.
The lower part is the snatch talk.
Yeah. But then you come in and it's literally the prints we've got on display, because we're doing like a mini museum at the front.
Yeah.
Starts off with British art, half of the British art, then it goes into Polynesian, and you got all the other artwork that comes across. So it's like kind of skewers the idea of like it's not just a place for Nordic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be fun to see the journey and try and, because obviously we both know Brock, obviously who used to work up in Wales as well. And I remember speaking to him how he loves Celtic stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
But quickly got kind of stuck doing a lot of Nordic stuff because that's such a popular thing, isn't it, right now? And
absolutely. Like, he's so good at both. That's the thing. Like, you can totally see why people would go to get tattooed by him for both Celtic and Nordic, because he's an incredibly talented artist and he does both styles incredibly well. So he has his own unique style and it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have, this hand was done by Brock, and I have my foot done by Brock. But I guess it's that same thing of like how you've got to not get stuck in that little lane of people just wanting to come and just get that from you and be able to, because the Viking stuff just doesn't ever seem to go away, does it? Like, this whole podcast is themed around the Viking stuff. So obviously everybody listening to this is into it. And I'm sure people that listen to this would be like, oh, I want a cool Viking tattoo from Gloria, or Nordic tattoo from Gloria. But when you get to do something else, I guess when I put it into context of me, like when I'm carving horns, I'll get tired of doing the same design. And then when somebody comes along with a new design or something that I've not done before or something from a different time period, I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm like, it just kind of reignites that excitement and kind of what we were talking about earlier of keeping that fresh.
Yeah.
Get that same excitement when somebody brings
Yeah, absolutely.
something.
I think the moments I get the more excited is when people ask me to, yes, if they want to use the Nordic styles for their tattoo, but they want me maybe to mix it with something modern, like their favorite characters from a game or stuff like that.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, oh my God, or, games like The Witcher, God of War, anything like that. Anything that people are passionate about and it's important to them. And for whatever reason they want it done in a Nordic or Celtic style, it's fantastic. It's such a fun interpretation to mix two things that are so completely different, and then you just merge them together to make something unique.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we had the Brighton Tattoo Convention last year. Alex, we got the email and it was sent a few pictures and he wanted, is it Celtic mixed with Warhammer, mixed with
Lovecraft
and Bloodborne, the PlayStation 4 game. And my eyes are just like, oh God, yes. And it worked beautifully.
Yeah, that's going to be a skill to merge them together.
Sometimes people have such original and incredible ideas for their tattoo project, and it's fantastic. Other times, they have some ideas you kind of have to say, it sounds great, but it might not work that well on skin. Other times, instead, it sounds amazing. It's going to look amazing, and yeah, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, people, it's got to be so scary because I get terrified when somebody asks me to make a horn for their wedding, and I'm like, that's it. Yeah, I'm absolutely honored to do it, and I'll do my best, and touch wood, they've always come out great, and that scares the hell out of me. So when it comes to putting something on somebody's skin that's gonna stay there,
yeah,
that's gotta be.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying, but because it's also a job, the best way I can do something like this is coming to work on the day thinking I am going to do the very best I can for this person today. And I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I thought that I didn't give my very best for that single person on that day. So that's the way I try to cope with such pressure and responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so before we wrap up, I want to touch on, because the collaboration between you two must be great, because obviously you're both.
We're still talking about the studio, Dan, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Well, in general, because you're happy to both call yourself nerds, history nerds, museum nerds, but obviously Richard has such a vast knowledge of a whole wide range of historical items that he's been around for the last 20 years, whether it's the stuff that's on display or loaned out to other museums, or even stuff that's just in the back that us mere mortals never get to even see, but he knows of it.
You're allowed to, if you wanted to.
I would. Well, I'm going to ask you about that in a second because I didn't know that. But that must work great for you two, because maybe somebody comes with an idea for you, Gloria, and Richard just has the perfect thing that he saw one time 20 years ago in the archives, and he's like, I'm going to get a little photo of you and it's going to fit perfect. Like, does that ever happen? Do these little collaborations happen like I expect them to?
Absolutely, yes.
Good.
Happen. It does happen quite often, actually.
Yeah, because what I said earlier, there was anything I was working with, like I used to send Gloria a picture of like once a day just to cheer her up, but then it was like, ooh. All of a sudden it'd be like, oh, I was taking 20 pictures of this like Celtic talk, and it was just like, all of a sudden it's like a photo dump, or just like, oh, you might want this. But then a lot of times it was one way. And then when we start properly collaborating, All of a sudden, I'd get a message saying, "Do you have any more close-ups of the Sutton Hoo garnets or something like that?"
Well, it's, sometimes I have an idea in mind for a specific detail, and the pictures that I get to take are just not quite good enough. Because that's the thing, like I am really not good at taking pictures. I'm quite crap at it. And I do know for a fact that probably a lot of my clients think, oh, she never posted my tattoo. I wonder why. Maybe she didn't like it. No, it's that I didn't personally like 40,000 of the pictures I took of that specific tattoo. Because I'm really bad at pictures. Yeah. So sometimes it does happen that Richard will have actually some very good pictures of that specific detail that I need. And yeah.
Yes. So I am kind of, I'm an excitable dog even at the museum. So I will often use lunch breaks to go to stores and just take multiple photos of like things that, one, I know I like, and then two, I think would look good as a tattoo one day. So if I would look on my phone, and I looked the other day when I had to delete photos from my phone because I had about 16,000 just from the museum alone. Photos that I've taken just in the course of a couple of years with that phone. And a lot of those have been transferred and we poured all over them before to use. And sometimes, it was when I was working up in Sutton Hoo that I had some of the Staffordshire hoard in front of us as well for the Sword of Kingdoms exhibition. And the guys up there were letting me take close-ups of the Staffordshire hoard, even though we had it at the British Museum for a little bit before it went out. I never know when you're going to need them for skin or decorations in the tattoo street.
Saying that, Richard's talents are not just in the pictures that he takes. He also has some incredible ideas. So I think our collaborations merge a lot also through the ideas. For example, the banners that we did for the show Mythos Ragnarok, Richard originally actually helped come up with the idea of the dual side of Odin and Loki for the banners. So the credit definitely doesn't go all to me.
Yeah.
And the cave side for the studio, absolutely. So
as annoying as it was, this bloody wall.
Yeah.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah. Oh, it just seems like such a lovely collaboration between the two. Because a tattooist that specializes in like historical archaeological things, a fiance of somebody who works around some of the greatest collection, or one of the greatest collections of archaeological finds, that has to be wonderful to be like, do you mind just getting me a little photo of this or this? And that's just a perk of it. I think that's great. It's going to turn out some amazing tattoos.
Hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it already has. I mean, in the book we've got to show people like the art we've already done. I always try and flip through to one of the Staffordshire mixed with Sutton Hoo. Gloria did all the red garnets, but then all the metal work underneath it as well, which is like everyone goes for the big like back pieces, but this was like just a half a sleeve, and it's just like for the dog, it was kind of like, because I also remember getting on the phone for the pictures, like, oh yeah, send me this.
Do you do many color pieces? Because you said then with the red and the gold, because typically I always think of like all Nordic. I don't want to just put you in the band of being a Nordic tattooist, but obviously that's what I know.
That's the main thing I do, though.
And most of it is all just black.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of any that I know who put color in. I know Sean Hogan puts quite a bit of like golden colors and stuff in, and colors. But
I usually always ask my clients if they would like to have any colors in their tattoos. The majority of the clients only want to have black ink, which seems to be the most used in this style. But there are a few clients that instead like to have only like small touches of colors here and there to highlight a few details in the design. I've done that a few times already, but the majority of clients mainly just want black artwork.
Oh, now I'm thinking about it. I think it would be because I think we have this terrible perception that all Nordic artwork was just
Mm.
black and white, when in reality Vikings or people living in Scandinavia in the Viking Age, whatever you want to call it, like they loved color. Like color was a sign of wealth. It was a sign of like affluence. It was there, but obviously it just doesn't survive over time. So everything just looks kind of a single color. So I think it would be fascinating to have like a tattoo like yours, but that's just really bright and beautiful. And I would love for somebody to get that done. Maybe me. Maybe I'm going to come and see you, and we can do something really colorful. Because I'm trying to think of it if I've ever seen it, and I don't think I have. I don't
No,
think I've.
I don't think I actually saw. I've seen very colored pieces, as in digitally drawn or on paper, but not actually on skin.
Mhm.
And I think with the right colors, it definitely has the potential to look amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So Jonas Lau Markusen did
Yeah.
some. We did a collaboration on some t-shirts, and they were very like he put a lot of color
Mhm.
and tried to kind of recreate what he thought would have gone, and they look stunning.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's got me all excited now. We'll have to talk after because I don't have many color tattoos. So I would love to.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
also how does that because you trained I'm going to put in quotation marks um with mainly with black, I guess. How does color react different? Because does it work differently colored inks? Like do you have to learn all again if you start going in with because or is it just the same as black?
Doesn't react necessarily differently. It depends on the colors. I mean, black is the pigment that will stay the blackest in the skin for
Hmm.
a very long time. Other pigments of colors, they will actually stay quite nicely, but it depends on the color. Some might tend to fade a little bit over time. Things like, for example, white or yellow pigments, they can tend to fade a bit more over time. So it really depends on the color. But
Hmm.
generally, they stay in quite well. I mean, we're talking about modern ink pigments anyway, so the industry has evolved quite a lot, and yeah, new tattoo inks are actually really, really good. So they tend to stay in the skin quite nicely.
Perfect. Yeah, I remember. So my friend Meg reminded me that I have some little pink cherry blossoms in
Yeah,
my like Japanese style tattoo, and that's the only color I think I have on my entire body. And I have quite a
yeah.
lot of tattoos, so yeah, I would love something like bright. Let's
Yeah, I
yeah.
think they can actually look really nice. Like I do have an example of work that I did quite a while ago now. I tattooed this client who had an old tattoo on his upper arm, and he had it lasered. So the laser got rid of the black ink, but he still had blue. And the option, he wanted it covered. So to cover a color like blue, you would usually have to put something darker on top of it
Hmm.
to make it disappear completely. But because he asked me for a design representing a kraken attacking a Viking ship, I thought there is already blue there, and you want a kraken slash sea themed tattoo. So why don't we just put more blue on top of it?
Hmm.
So I basically blended the blue that was already there inside the design. So I designed the kraken accordingly to the shape that was there, added more blue on top of it, and kind of merged it with the black dot work. And you cannot see the old tattoo at all now, which
Oh,
is
wonderful.
yeah,
It's one of my favorites.
it's really
That's in the
nice.
book,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, that's in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible tattoo. Really, absolutely gorgeous.
So
And you wouldn't even know it.
yeah, I think Nordic and color can actually work together quite nicely.
Yeah, well, we'll talk because
Absolutely.
I need to get something solely. Obviously, like I said before, I've had a little bit of you like when training, but I need something that's just straight from your mind, that's your design, and I think that would be fun just to do something different. That's this color.
Yeah, I'm always up for it.
I need to pick a spot. Okay, let's wrap this up and let the patrons ask you some questions. But I guess the last question, I've not had a tattooist on for a while. Do you think Vikings were tattooed?
Oh, that is the question.
Let's end it on that. Whether just your gut feeling, your opinion, like.
It's a very difficult question because we all know of the accounts from the Arabian traveler Abdul Fadlan, who encountered a group of Rus Vikings, and he described them as having their bodies covered in tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
But there is the issue that some people actually say the translation of what he was describing might have lost its original meaning through multiple translations over time. There is also the issue that he might have been describing that specific group that he encountered, but that is not comprehensive of the remaining population of the rest of Scandinavia and British Isles. Mm-hmm. So you cannot say because those Vikings had tattoos, then the whole population had tattoos. But saying that, there is also the thing that tattoos were present in Europe. The tattoos have been present in Europe at least since the times of Otzi the Iceman, and that was a long time before the Vikings. So Vikings definitely didn't know what tattoos were. They must have been in contact with populations that had tattoos. There is bodies that have been found in parts of Central Europe that supposedly had some tattoos as well. So tattoos were present in Europe. But to what extent the Vikings were into it or not, we don't know. Unless we find a very preserved, crispy Viking somewhere, I don't think we'll ever know for sure.
So, okay, what do you think? Do you
me?
Both of you? Yeah, is there a yes, or can I get a yes or no answer? Like,
I am going to be controversial and say there are more important things historically and archaeological that I want answers on before that. Because they probably do. There's Egyptians for thousands of years BC had tattoos, so obviously ours spread. But until we find a frozen thing or some time traveler goes back and captures the Pearl War, we won't know. But there are so many other important archaeological things I want answers for. That do some people in northern Scandinavia have ink underneath their skin? They probably did, so I don't need a definitive yes or no. But I want to eliminate the word ritual out of museum terminology by saying this little ball did this. This is why they did this. This is why they have that in their graves and stuff like that. So there's so many answers that I want answering. I think that the Vikings and tattoos is kind of like a small, a little bit controversial on that one.
Personally, I am very, very biased on the subject, being a tattoo artist. So I do want them to have tattoos for the simple reason that their artwork is so amazing and intricate that I would like to think that their tattoos, if they had any, were as intricate and detailed as the artwork they were putting on objects.
Yeah, and
they probably did.
It's one of those where we know that they love to show off.
Absolutely.
That's undeniable. Like we said, like they loved color, they loved intricate jewelry items, they loved anything that could be very like peacocking almost. That kind and obviously we have Olaf the Peacock, like that kind of that showy thing of just look at me. And I think that they if they had the means to, which we know the technology was around, and we know that they would have encountered people who were tattooed, we know how far they traveled. So I think it's likely that whether it's all of them, is any population ever tattooed in any generation? That's the sweetest thing you both you both just like tickled your neck at the exact same moment. That was like that was the cutest little thing. You were both just there, and you both just tickled the neck at the exact same time. You know, you two are so adorable. But I think that like it's like today, not everybody is tattooed.
Exactly.
It's probably the same back then. Not everybody would have been tattooed, but surely some would be, whether it was Viking raiders who went elsewhere and maybe picked up a tattoo from a culture that tattooed, or maybe it was, or maybe not. Like, I think no matter what the answer it will be, it's never black and white. It's always grey.
I'd also like to see the reverse of it, of somebody at the other side of the Silk Road, like all the way back in like China and Mongolia, of them having Nordic tattoos like in the early medieval times, to see if the art had penetrated from Scandinavia all the way back instead of art coming along in the West. I'd love to see if there was any kind of like, if I was going to go back in history, I'd like to go back and try and see the inspirations that have gone the other direction. Because you always hear about the Buddha being found in Scandinavia, you always hear about the art and the marketplace going west, like you find all the Sun garnets, they're all the way at the beginning of the Silk Road, but you never hear about anything going in the other direction. So I'd like to go back in time and see if like, ooh, this guy's got a Nordic tattoo, and he's like he's in Thailand or something like that. Like,
yeah.
900 AD, that'd be pretty cool.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that would be fun. All right, let's wrap this up. I was quickly just Googling to see if Olaf the Peacock was actually a real person. And somehow I pulled that out from all the episodes I've done of this podcast. I just remembered that from somewhere. And I was right. Olaf the Peacock was a real person. So I didn't just make it up. So I'm so, because I was like, shit, did I just like completely make that up? But apparently not. Olaf the Peacock was a merchant and chieftain in the early Icelandic Commonwealth. So yeah, I'm proud of myself there, because I doubted myself.
All
right, let's wrap this up. Let's let people ask you some questions. So where can people find the both of you social media wise? Give the shop a shout out again.
My personal account on Instagram is Dear Art, and that's where you will find the majority of my works. Richard has his own account where he shares his adventures between museums, cemeteries, and travels.
Yep. That's just my name. I'm quite boring that one, so Richard K. Wakeman.
And then we share the account for Old War Remains as well.
Mm-hmm.
Old.world.remains.
I'm sure if you type it in without the dots, it will come up straight away.
It will come up for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so excited to see where this goes. I think you should be very incredibly proud of your journey, where you've got to, like you said, this time last year. Well, not even this time last year. I'm sure. What are we in? September? 9 months ago, you probably would never have thought that you would be sat in London in your own studio, beautifully decorated, open for business.
Would have never guessed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think so much has happened so quickly and without any breaks. In one way, we just went for it, and another way, we were holding on for dear life.
But that's how the most amazing things happen. Sometimes, I'm sure, everything might be a little bit raw still now and a bit sensitive, but I'm sure in 5-10 years time, you'll look back and everything kind of, I don't necessarily always like the term everything happens for a reason, but everything kind of, it pushed you into this new chapter, and you might not look back on it fondly, but I'm sure there'll be some kind of like a different perspective of it, maybe, where it's like it bred this amazing journey, and because it's scary, and not there are so many people out there who probably want to open up their own tattoo studios, and there are probably so many tattooists who just rent a chair at a tattoo studio. The dream, not even just in Nordic world, but in tattoo world in general, the dream of having their own studio, and it never really happens. And then sometimes it might take an unfortunate event that then forces your hand to take the leap, and it's scary as hell. But you had no other choice, so you had to take the leap, and it worked. You know, when you put the work in, and you're as good as you are, it pays off, and that's where you are now. So, you know, all credit to it.
I kind of like I'm not just proud of what we've done. I'm just so proud of like Gloria also for just being we're both incredibly anxious, really, but the fact that we managed to not kill ourselves and just get our heads down and go through it. And
for me, even just the fact of moving to London, it was absolutely terrifying. I had never lived in a place like London before. I'm still very much learning. There's loads of things I haven't got used to just yet, but I'm getting there.
It's a little bit different than a town on the edge of Wales.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I imagine that's quite I don't know where you came from, or where you're from in Italy, whether it's a big town or a little town.
No, it's a very, very small town.
Oh, okay.
It's not bigger than Fandina.
It's famous.
I mean,
it's famous.
Not for good reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. But so that's a cultural shock in itself, though, isn't it? Like if you're a small town girl and then you're put in London, but you have probably the best graveyard guide anyway.
Funny thing, we do have a link in a way through my hometown in Italy that we found out just talking while we were friends.
Oh, wow.
Gloria's hometown is Casino, and it's Monte Cassino.
Which most people will have heard about only because of Second World War, because it was one of the major places where basically there was conflicts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of my family members was in Gloria's hometown before Gloria was born, getting blown up.
Wow.
Yeah, my granddad's this is going to be one of those soppy love romance kind of stories.
I love it. Don't you worry, I love it.
But it's kind of like, well, where are you from? And she went, from Casino. And I was just like, oh, Monte Cassino. And like she went, yeah, you've heard of it. And I was like, yeah, my granddad got shot there. And then you said?
Many granddads got shot there.
Well,
which I loved.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. So, I thought it was fantastic. Not my granddad getting shot.
He survived. He survived.
He survived. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Wonderful. All right. On that note, let's wrap this up. Let's let the patron ask you some questions. You two are the sweetest. I wish you both all the best, whether it's in business or just your relationship as a whole. Like you're too cute. I'm a big softie at heart. I love love. Love's just great, isn't it? It's the best. And looking at how Richard looks at you, Gloria, it's making me all soppy. So it's very sweet. And yeah, you two will do. I'm sure you two will be a force to be reckoned with. And you have a very bright future, whether it's in the museum world, the tattoo world, whatever you do. You're a little power couple.
Oh God, no, that's not what we. But thank you. Yes, it is with museums and tattoos together. It's
an interesting combination. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely going to give it a good go.
Good. Very good. I'm sure it will be a success. Okay, for anybody who wants to follow me, it's Daniel_Farrand1, the business Horns of Odin, and then just Nordic Mythology podcast across the board, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. If you want to look at our faces, look at these two looking lovingly at each other, simultaneous scratching. Well, you know what? I challenge anybody for not to put a smile on their face. So thank you both very much. I look forward to talking about a colorful tattoo as well. So
yeah, sounds absolutely great. So I'm more than happy to discuss that with you. But thank you so much for inviting us.
No, you're welcome. And we can always do it again. Once the
I'm not that interesting.
oh, I'm sure you are. I have a ton more stuff I was gonna ask Richard about tattoos and like well, because is there a I can't even get into it now because we've been going for an hour and a half already. But I was gonna ask Richard about mummies and tattoos, and because is there one at the museum with tattoos?
There is, but the paper has not yet been finished on it. There's a little bit of details online, and it's one of the Gabalian bodies up in Gallery 64. They found the tattoos by using infrared, but there hasn't officially been properly released all the specific details yet.
Okay.
So it's online, but it hasn't been completely published yet, as far as I'm aware.
I cannot wait because it sounds so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go.